Okay. Oh. Is it okay? Okay. I'm muted. Okay. Aloha, everyone. Welcome. And those of us in the room, yay, we all made it here to a different place. Sorry, I have to. And I thank everybody for coming and thank everybody who's here via Zoom. And thank UH College of Ed and the EOEL staff for making it happen here. And I was just saying that this really makes me appreciate even more how the Seed Center and Christina and her staff allow us to meet there and how they make it much easier for us. So thank you for this change, but thank you also to our continuing hosts that will be back to the Seed Center next month. We are here and I'm going to the next slide. So Alana, are you on?
Hi, Elaine. Yes, I am.
Alana, who is our Kauai County rep, is going to read our vision and mission.
The vision is creating a sustainable early learning system that partners with families to ensure that every child is healthy, valued, and successful in school and life. The mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry.
Okay, so next is announcements and roll call. So the announcement that is in the agenda and posted here is from Office of Hawaiian Education in DOE, and it's about Kaipuni priority placement request process, which is new. And it says the submission window will close on March 13th. So please share that information with anybody who is interested in DOE Kaipuni placement. And let me do roll call. So I'll start with the voting members. Alana Souza.
Aye.
Pau'i Burgess.
Ew.
Cheryl Kuriamat.
Aye.
Dr. Soma Gandhi.
Aye.
Dr. Lindsay Heathcock.
Aye.
Joni Onishi. Joni on? No?
She was on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's on.
Okay. Joni?
Aye. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Stephanie Shipton. Stephanie?
No.
She's on?
Sure.
No? Okay. When she comes on, you can let me know. Somebody can let me know. Okay, I'm here. And our ex officio members, Dana Luca is not able to come today. Is Stacy here? She was going, and she wasn't sure if Stacy could make it. Anybody from DHS? No, if anybody shows up, if somebody can let me know. Disa Hagi, DOE. Disa, are you on?
No.
No, okay, Diana Dolier. HAIS. Napua Rosehill, Kamehameha.
Ew, here.
And Steve Schatz for UH. Steve not on yet. How about Matt Shim?
I'm here, thanks.
Okay, mahalo. Ben is on vacation, good for him. And Dr. Ephraim Schwab.
Aye.
Okay, here you go. Thank you. Okay, next. We have the minutes from our last meeting in January, and mahalo again to Tara for taking the minutes. Any corrections? No corrections? Well, I'm not hearing any. I'll entertain a motion to pass the minutes.
I move to accept the.
Okay, Carl, you moved. Can I have a second?
This is Lindsay. I'll second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to accept the January minutes as submitted. Last chance for any corrections or edits. Okay, not hearing any. I'm going to go down the voting roll call. So Alana Souza.
Aye.
Okay, Carl E.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Soma.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
Joni.
Aye.
Okay, did Stephanie come in? No,
No,
Stephanie.
but Stephen Schutz is.
Oh, Steve Schatz came in? Okay, I got you, Steve. Okay. Except, but we have quorum and everyone that voted. We have 6 votes in favor and 5 is quorum, so the minutes pass as submitted. How everybody? Any comments on the minutes, public comments? So public comments are limited to 2 minutes. Any public comments? Nothing in the chat? Okay, we'll go on. So actually, this should be a board member update. Yeah, this really should be board member update. So Alana, can you update us on what's happening on Kauai?
Hi, Elaine. Yes, I'd like to take a chance to introduce the county coordinator on Kauai, Natasha. She's on the call right now, and I would like to invite her to just introduce herself and talk about her role with the Kauai County.
Okay, we'll have to get, okay, Natasha. Natasha Perry. Okay,
Oh,
Natasha, you
Okay, fine. Aloha. My name is Natasha Perry. I'm a new early childhood coordinator for the County of Kauai. This is my second week. I've been learning a lot, reading a lot. My background is from Patch, so childcare resources, referrals, USDA food program, all of those programs. So I'm here to listen, to learn, to support. Yeah, thank you.
okay? Mahalo. Thank you for serving Kauai and thank you for joining us today. Alana, anything else you want to share with us?
Thank you, Natasha. Next weekend, I believe, February 21st, there will be a early childhood conference on Kauai at Island School. I can share the link in the chat to register if anyone is interested in attending. It is put on by the Kauai Early Learning Hui.
Mahalo. Oh yeah, see, sorry. Any other updates? I do want to update the board on testimony that I submitted on behalf of the board. Since the minutes were approved, the agenda was approved. So House Bill 1872, the apprentice regarding apprenticeships, was heard and we submitted testimony and that has passed out of committee. And then this afternoon at 2 p.m. is another committee hearing in House Bill 2019 which asks for funding for FCIL programs and cites how the cut to federal funding has really drastically affected the FCIL programs. That's being heard this afternoon. So testimony on behalf of the board was submitted for those bills. And I know Dana is not here for DHS, but they did have a childcare advisory meeting on Tuesday. I'm no longer the childcare advisory rep from Maui. Gemma Medina is. However, I still attend as a member of the public, and I got in late. And when I got in, there's an infant toddler subgroup that is proposing some recommendations to change the infant toddler licensing rules, so to expand the pool of people that can qualify. So they were giving, Caroline Soga was giving an update, and she was asking for member feedback during feedback from members in whoever was attending the meeting. And so that was a really good way for her to get some feedback and comments on what they're recommending, and they still are working on it. And then another thing that happened was there was a presentation from early intervention on the referral process or the child fine process, which is mandated by the federal government. And so that might be something that we'll ask to have maybe a presentation to the board, because it was an interesting, it's interesting to know how that process goes. Any other board members have any updates from their arenas? And this includes non-voting members, non-voting and voting members. Okay, not hearing any public comments on what was just shared. Okay, not hearing anything, I'm going to stop sharing and give it over to Yuko and her team.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Here are our updates today. I just wanted to highlight that Jen is actually at the Capitol for us. We said that we testify via Zoom because we're not sure who's going to be where. So she's standing by over there in person. I'm here. If it cuts it close, I'll jump in on Zoom. But if not, then I might run down there and join her. But she has some legislative updates for us today.
Thank you, Yuko. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So as you all know, the legislative session is off and running. They didn't waste any time. They got started quite early this year. We want to remind the board that this is a supplemental year, so the second year of the legislative biennium, which means that all the bills that were introduced last session in 2025 that did not pass out of the legislature carry over to this legislative session with the same status that they had at the end of last session. So last year in 2025, the legislature introduced over 3,000 bills, and only 322 passed out of the legislature. So that leaves, over 2,500 bills that are carrying over to this supplemental year. In addition to that, they had the opportunity to introduce new bills, and a total of 2,459 bills were introduced this legislative session, fresh for 2026. So the combination of carryover bills and new bills that were introduced does make tracking a little bit more complicated, and you'll see some references in the slides of trying to notate which bills we're keeping track of that are related to things introduced again this session or that have seen action this session that were actually carryover bills from the previous session. So for context, we've already had one deadline pass besides the bill introduction deadline. Yesterday was the House's triple referral deadline. So bills in the House that received a triple referral, which means that they have to go through 3 different committees sequentially in order to pass out of the House. They had to be reported out of the first committee they were referred to by yesterday. And so we've already seen a few bills kind of drop off because they were not able to meet that deadline. The Senate historically does not utilize triple referrals as often. They tend to rely more heavily on joint referrals to address bills that touch on multiple committee purviews. And so there were no triple referral Senate bills that we were monitoring this year. And the next big deadline for the legislature is the double referral filing deadline on Thursday, February 19th. And that's going to be the last day that the second to the last committee has to file their committee reports and report bills out to the last committee that they are referred to. So we're keeping track of those deadlines as things move forward. Similar to last year, we are presenting a few kind of bills to highlight for the board. We're tracking many more than this, but these are kind of the most directly relevant to early learning that we are actively participating in and monitoring, tracking, and providing testimony on. Some of these look familiar, like the FCIL contracts bills that's listed first on the slide. House Bill 249 carried over from last session. It's currently sitting in finance. House Bill 2019 and Senate Bill 2496 were a pair of companion bills that were introduced fresh for this session. As you folks all know, the situation with the primary ELEU FCIL providers has been kind of evolving, and so this bill was introduced to help have a vehicle to provide funding in case there are shortages, or possibly to just add diversification of funding sources for our FCIL programs. So since the slides were finalized, the House bill has actually been scheduled for hearing, as Yuko mentioned, and the hearing for that bill is this afternoon. So House Bill 2019 has a hearing this afternoon. A new bill that popped up this year that we did not see last year is a bill to extend the time limit on the Department of Education's use of emergency permit holders. There are vehicles moving in both the House and the Senate for this subject matter this year. Both House Bill 1825 and Senate Bill 2125 have had hearings and appear to be moving. EOL has submitted testimony in support of extending the time limit, but prefers that it would remain time limited as opposed to one of the versions of the bills that initially proposed that the time limit be eliminated altogether. So extending the time limit would help EOEL teachers with bachelor's degrees who are actively working to obtain a teaching license in early childhood education. It would help us retain those teachers if they are actively working toward it, but need more than 3 years to complete the process of obtaining full licensure. Yuko, if you want to, thank you. The next two bills highlighted are the Early Learning Apprenticeship Grant Program. This is a reintroduction of the same bill that was introduced last year that the UH College of Education has been working with Representative Garrett on. And the House Bill, House Bill 1872, has already had a hearing and appears to be moving forward. And then the other one that we wanted to highlight for the board is a bill that would provide additional funding for charter pre-K only schools. This appears to mirror the Charter Commission's budget request that they had made to increase funding for these programs. The Charter Commission had included it in their proposed budget, but the governor did not make it into the final version of the budget, the governor's proposed budget for this legislative session. So I would note that both the funding for the charter pre-K only schools and the funding for the FCIL providers do not appear to require any statutory changes. And so these bills are vehicles for the appropriations, but they also could potentially be funded directly through the budget since there's no changes to existing laws or no additional new laws needed in order to execute the purposes of that funding. And then finally, we don't want to forget about the budget bill for this year. In the governor's proposed budget, it contains requests for a few position counts that the board had approved earlier in the process. And so we want to keep an eye on that. And then listed below are a few other bills that are, we wanted to note that we thought might be of interest to the board. And that we will be continuing to keep close tabs on as we move forward. I'll pause there for questions, or if Yuko has anything else she'd like to add.
Thank you. Chair, would it be possible to see if anybody has any questions about this? Because the 2 o'clock hearing is going to start at maybe, because sometimes you never know, they switch bills around. So
Right,
I want to make
yeah,
sure she can
yeah.
jump inside. So
Yeah, yeah.
does anybody have any questions regarding any of this?
This is Steve Schatz. I have one question.
Mhm.
On the bill to extend the emergency hire, the emergency permit time limit. Did you mention how many EOEL teachers this might affect? Like how many are on emergency permits?
Okay, so I can get that answer for you. I don't have that right now with me, but I can get that and I can bring it back to the board.
Okay, yeah, I'm just sort of interested.
Yes.
And when the DOE reports those numbers, are they probably reporting EOEL and K-12 or?
Yes, our teachers are HST bargaining unit 5 teachers. So we are lumped in with the DOE general number, but we also have our own tracking for our own teachers.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
There are also teachers in EOEL that have already utilized their 3 years of emergency permit availability. And then so there's the only other option for them is to become an educational assistant or substitute until those programs can open. Oh, you have the number?
I have the number for last year.
Oh, last year. Okay, so what is the number from last year?
For 2024, 2025, we had 17 under the emergency hire.
Okay, so last school year we had 17, but I don't know what it is this year. We can probably,
Still working on it.
yeah, we can pull that this year.
17 out of,
92.
92.
got it. Okay. Thanks.
I would also note that in their testimony, DOE had mentioned that they're in the process of polling. They're the teachers that are currently utilizing emergency hire permits. And so they're, I think, hoping to be able to provide the legislature with some additional data and information about the situation for all of those folks as well.
Thanks.
The other part that we're monitoring too is how long does it actually take somebody? So in addition to all the things that have already been mentioned about people trying to juggle work and also schooling, the other thing is the program availability to actually get your initial license. So anybody who has a permit does not have the initial license. So these are not people who have to add a field to become highly qualified. These two terms are different in the Department of Education. And so sometimes the pathways to initial licensure are not very clean and clear or available. And so we have had people in those pathways. So we're also trying to track how long does it take them? What is a typical time frame?
Yeah, I mean, if I might just comment on that too, like 3 years, it's not that long. It's kind of quick if you're working full time.
Yeah.
Right. And you're actually adding,
Yes.
a certain significant amount of schooling. So, yeah.
Yes.
But to
Yes,
your
and-
point too, like hopefully collectively we can figure out a way where we're not just asking for an extension, we're asking for that's like a we of all of us asking for an extension of the time, but also a commitment to actually making it possible for these guys to convert
Yes.
to licensed certified
Yeah.
teacher.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's very important for everybody to know that these are 3 lifetime years. This is it. Like in your whole lifetime, you get 3 years, that's it. So let's say like 5 years ago, you were emergency permit holder, that's year 1. And then let's say sometimes year later, somebody wants to pick you up and they slot you in, then that's year 2. So when people come to EOEL, let's say as a permit holder, like understanding what year they are, doesn't mean that they have always been all years in EOEL pre-K.
Yeah, Elaine, I have a comment. I think they also try to tie it in with the international teachers they bring in.
Yes.
So I did notice that they come in on 5-year work visas. So if they're only allowed to teach for 3 years and there's a 5-year work visa, then that makes it difficult for them to stay or for us to attract those hires.
Thanks, Ephraim. Any other questions?
I
About
have a question. This is Joni. You know, the ledge has been critical with the DOE as far as the number of vacant positions.
Mhm.
Would that do they include you in that comment?
We
So-
have received questions about our vacant positions, but I think they've been separate from the larger DOE.
DOE. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Yuko,
you.
do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, yes. So we're together and also separate from the DOE. So when we also submit reports, we are also submitting separately. So they can actually see parts of us through the DOE and they can also see us separately.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to workforce development and support. And Ian, if you can highlight this for us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me
Yes.
on Zoom? Okay. Just wanted to provide a quick update about our early childhood educator stipend program fall data. This is just a high level number that we have right now. This is the total number of recipients in the fall was 97. We had 97 recipients of the stipend. And then we had 14 new recipients in the fall term. One of the things that I've been sharing as we move through this program is the completer data that we have once folks complete their programs of study. We wanted to kind of take a look to see what early learning settings they end up in to serve their work commitment. So as you can see here, the bulk of folks are either in community-based programs or ELB from pre-K, but we do have folks really spread across the different early learning settings. 2 at charter schools, 20 at community-based programs, 3 at the community college children's centers. Each of the community colleges, as well as our university campuses, have these children's centers supporting their students. And so we have 3 folks there, 1 in a DOE special education preschool program, 18 within our EOEL public pre-K classrooms. We have 3 working with FCILs and 5 in Head Start, 3 with Kamehameha Schools preschools, and there were 6 that are currently still looking for positions. So that's we have a total of 61 completers. This is as of the summer 2025 data that we have. I'll get more data regarding our fall completers once we get the final report.
And then by island.
Oh, and sorry, yes, and by island, nice to see that we have a spread across all of the islands. So 9 on Hawaii Island, 5 on Kauai, 1 on Lanai, 6 on Maui, 1 on Lokali, and 39 on Oahu. Last week, I had the privilege and honor to attend the Educators Rising event that was held right here at UH Manoa at the Emin Conference Center. Educators Rising is a program that is run through the DOE. It is a club that is at DOE high schools. In certain cases connected to their CTE programs in education, and actually for a number of programs, this is the club for those interested in education at schools where there is not a dedicated education CTE pathway. The event actually was held across 2 days, so February 5th and 6th, and I was able to judge one of the competitions that they had on the 6th. I was able to judge a public service announcement competition. So it was really inspiring to see all of these high school teams present a public service announcement. All of the participants are interested in education. So it was a really great opportunity to connect with these young people. And it allowed them the opportunity to really be here on campus at UH. I think they actually were staying in the dorms, and then they were able to connect with College of Education staff on the teachers and staff on the 5th. So again, really inspiring. Great to see that we do have young people interested in education. We're hoping that this is the inaugural event, so really hoping that this is something that can continue to be supported and expand.
Thank you.
Yes, this is me, Ephraim Schwab, Head Start Collaboration Office Director. We just want to congratulate Child Family Services for opening up their Infant Toddler Center in Eval. We were able to attend that event, and this is their second center they've opened up within the last year. So it's very encouraging to see some of our early Head Start programs helping to provide the services to these young children and families. I think currently this brings our total number of infant toddler children that are being served and their families to upwards of 580 students statewide. So this is a good job. So thank you, Child and Family Services, for all your hard work.
The next piece that we're going to be looking at is funding for the early care and education system. And these are the questions that we've been really thinking about in our office, because a senator made a comment at a hearing that we were not at about how EOEL is supposed to be monitoring the relationship between preschool open doors uptake and utilization, and also EOEL public pre-K seats and applications. And so we've been trying to look at relationships. So how do preschool open doors and EOEL public pre-K collectively advance or unintentionally fragment equitable access for priority populations? What would it look like for POD and EOEL to function as a coordinated continuum rather than parallel pathways? In what ways do site level incentives or constraints shape enrollment patterns across the two systems? And what signals does utilization data send out about family needs that are not being met by our current program designs? And so as you've been trying to analyze and take a look at these relationships, one of the first pieces that we're taking a deeper dive into is our EOEL public pre-K applications. And so I'm going to turn this portion over to Remy.
Thank you, Yuko. So can I share my screen, maybe?
Oh, Remy, so I'm sharing this. Can you see this? I can show the slides for you if that's okay. Remy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so
I have a control. Do I have control on here or not?
No, I have to control it from my slide deck. Is this
Okay.
okay? It's the
Oh
same
yeah, that's
slide.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everybody. So I'm gonna present some figures from the school year 25-26 COEL applications. And then I have added some enrollment figures too from the quarter 1. So keep in mind that quarter 1 was at the beginning of the school year, and enrollment intake is relatively fluid, and so we can expect some increase in enrollment over quarter 2. And so I'll update you on when those enrollment figures would have stabilized later on this year. In any case, go back to the first slide. Okay, in any case, this is the first kind of the dashboard kind of numbering. So you can see that we had a total applicants of about 3,500 applicants, more or less, 1,500 enrolled, which is about 44%. 75% applied to only one school. But that means also that 25% applied to more than 2 schools. So we'll have an overview of what this means after that. Over all of the schools that are hosting an EOEL program, 66 were oversubscribed. That means that you had at the very least 1.5 application for 1 seat. And I'll detail some of those figures later on. 46% of the applicants seem to have wanted to prefer to stay in their home zone school. The home zone is the DOE school, allocation by the residency of the child, of the family. And then an interesting figure here, this one, 10% of the enrolled mentioned in the application to the EOEL program that they were participating in a different program prior to enroll in a EOEL classroom. Those 10% were spread over 45 feeder programs. So as you can see here, I mean, it's mostly Oahu, 6%, and the rest are peppered around the other islands. Key priority population, 213 applicants were homeless or unstable housing, 322 IEP, had an IEP, and 485 were English language learner. So let's move on to the second slide. This is thank you. So this is the kind of the trend of the application. Obviously, as you can imagine, as the applications opens in March, then we see spikes, and then after that, it stabilizes at around 100 with a little pickup just right before the school year starts. This is an average of 60 applications a week. So next slide, please. Here is the applicant age distribution. So it's about 50-50, sort of 55-45, 55 4 years old, and then the rest 45 3 years old. Okay. All right. The school zone figures. So yeah. So mostly, let's just start by the bottom, Oahu. So 60% of the applicants in Oahu applied to schools that were out of their home school zone. 40% applied within their home school zone. And then as we go through the different islands, then Maui, Hawaii, Kauai, Molokai, Lanai, then well, obviously, Lanai, it should have been 100%, but there was, in fact, a family that decided to maybe apply to on the leeward on Oahu. So maybe they have families there, so they send an application over there. But yes, so Lanai, obviously, there is just one homeschool zone there, so that's 100%. But otherwise, it's kind of interesting to see that applicants are willing to shift across school zones. Next slide, please. This is the enrollment flow. So again, 27% enroll in outside of their school zone, and then 73% enroll in their home school. So although they were willing to seek out schools that were outside of this home schools. I mean, 3/4 of the enrollees at this point chose to stay close to home. Yeah. Can we move on to the next slide? Here I would describe a little bit of the priority categories combinations. So they are ranked by frequency. So on top, you see that 37% of the applicants applied with, they when they fill out the form, they say that they were eligible they were under 4 sort of priorities. So that's 37% of them. But 17% though, and this is the second largest frequency here, had no priorities of any sort. So the priorities are 300, you have about 6 of them, and then they are 300% FPL, whether having an IEP, whether English as a second language, at risk, homeless or unstable housing, etc. So but if you look at the 4 priorities and 5 priorities, which is about now close to 50%, so about 50% of the applicants had at least 4 priorities when they applied. Next slide, please. Okay, this is I think interesting. The language spoken at home. 88% described that of the applicants described that they would speak mostly English at home, and those that describe another language were mostly Japanese on the first, on the highest kind of families, of the most frequency spoken language at home. Then Spanish, and then Turkish, and Ilocano, Chinese, Korean, Tagalog, Mandarin, Hawaiian, Marshallese, Portuguese, and Vietnamese in this order. We should take those figures with a grain of salt and with caution, because families might have decided not to answer this question. Yeah. But at least those who did, then this is the distribution of languages that we found. Next slide, please. Okay, this is as you might recall. So some families decided to apply to several schools, and so here we looked at the network of the schools they applied to. So when you have, for example, the circle represent the proportion of application on that given schools, and then the edges and the thickness of the edges, the number of applicants that applied to that school, and then the one that is linked to. So, for example, Chief Capurani, you see a larger circle, so that means more applications there, and then a thicker edge that goes to Hilo Union, which means that more than 5 applicants applied also to Hilo Union. So that's the kind of the network we obtained here. Next slides, we're going to see it for Wahoo. So this is a little bit more, it's a bit busier, obviously, but still. So you can see some schools are really applied to, like, for example, in the middle of it, you have Kahala, but then they are also connected to other highly applied to schools, like, for example, Noelani. That's just, they are relatively close to each other. And then so the network is so that means that applicants are willing to apply to different sort of schools. Okay, next slide, please. So this is where the network and the kind of distribution of school applied to comes in. Comes in with some sort of figures and impact, or let's just say statistics that we can leverage. So here we have the domain ratio. So this is the number of applications compared to the capacity of the given school. And so, for example, here, IEA Elementary, well, they saw they have a demand ratio of 6, which means that they are for 6 applications, there were 1 seat. For 1 seat, 6 applications. So this is definitely a highest demand pressure for the schools. And here I've just listed the most the top school, the highest demand ratio across the state. So Oahu composed the majority of those, but we still see that there is a school on Hawaii, and then there is 2 schools on Maui that also have a high demand ratio. So we're going to see this same type of demand ratio on the next slide. But here I've plotted the same. So it's the combination of the network that we saw earlier with the demand ratio, right? Except here it's distributed by latitude and longitude to give a sense of the geographic. So this is here, it's Hawaii. So again, we saw that Kehau is a hotspot where people applying to Kehau also apply to other schools, and those schools are also oversubscribed to some extent. So you see the legend here. Red means that you have 4 times more application than seats, and then in brown it's 2 to 4, and yellowish 1 to 2. A green dot means that in fact it's under capacity. Well, under capacity is just under capacity. Okay, so for example, you have 20 seats, and then if there was 18 applicants, then that would be in green, which is the case here for Kalanianalau. Next slide. So same logic for Maui. So we see that, for example, upcountry people are willing to apply to different schools. Next slide. And then this is Oahu. So again, we can see geographically here the hotspots of applicants. Kailua, applicants are willing to apply to at least 4 schools, mostly 4, 5, 6, 7 schools. So it's definitely a hotspot there. Similarly with Aiea, Pearl Harbor Kai, and Red Hill. And as we mentioned earlier with Noelani, it's also a hotspot there, like a lot of applications to that school, and applicants to that schools are also applying to other schools. We see that we have a few green nodes there. So those are the schools that are, slightly under capacity. I think that's it.
Thank you, Remy. Thank
Sure.
you. We know that the text is really small, but this is available on the board's website. And so feel free to go take a look at the general board, the PowerPoint presentation, because you can make it as large as you need to see it. And if you need it even larger than that, then feel free to let us know. But this is our first attempt to try to map what's happening with EOEL public pre-K. And what we would love to do eventually is to overlay preschool open doors to try to see like what are these relationships between the 2 programs. And we have been asked last year and this year to talk about the relationship between preschool open doors uptake and utilization and EOEL public pre-K uptake and utilization. And so this is our first attempt at trying to figure out what are families doing and what are they looking for and where are they looking. And so we're hoping to get another picture of family behaviors through preschool open doors when we're able to analyze that data. So thank you, Remy. Okay. Now we're looking at addressing program quality improvement and maintenance. So inclusive practices.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Ephraim Schwab, again, Head Start Collaboration Office. We just kind of want to update the board on ongoing discussions where we've been actually able to meet with principals and 609 IDA coordinators and Head Start. One of the desires of a lot of principals in our DO campuses is to have inclusive opportunities there. And so we've been having a lot of success trying to coordinate IEPs and placements and having parents know when the windows for applications are so that they can get those placements. because Head Start is a program where we have to stay fully enrolled. So those placement windows can be very short and they can close. And so we just wanted to comment that that work is underway, and we feel really good about meeting with the principals and seeing how that will play out in the future. And then just a shout out to our 619 coordinators at the DOE. They've been tremendous in meeting us in some of those spaces. To have the whole group at the table has been really beneficial for the coordination effort.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can pause for comments from the board first, I guess.
Yeah. Any comments from the board?
Do you have any data from parents who are enrolling or not getting enrolled, excuse me, applying and not getting enrolled, or those who are getting enrolled, anything about like what they're saying? Do we have anything like that?
Like comments from parents on
Yeah.
how they feel about the program?
How they feel, or even the enrollment program, the process, anything, any kind of data, I'm just.
So our
curious.
pre-K program,
Our
we
pre-K.
do know that they have surveyed before. I don't think we sent out a survey yet this year, but we could, and we can always look at it again. We just, yeah.
I was just curious.
Okay.
I just wanted to know how the enrollment process is going.
Mhm.
It's super sad to see we don't have enough seats still. I mean, I get it. Not till 2032 are we supposed to be getting 100% of the seats, but it's still sad for those 3 and 4-year-olds. Anyway. Okay, thanks.
I guess just a comment. I do know that there are community-based preschools still with openings.
Okay.
Yes. For a fact.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
especially in those areas like IA Elementary. So I hope the data with POE comes out and the overlay. I myself, like I said, wear 2 hats where I am a director at a Pearl City preschool. I do have relationships with my elementary school principals. Yeah, so anyway, I just hope that, as you can see, that other schools do have that relationship with their fellow elementary schools, and yeah, just so that there's more cohesiveness so we can fill more seats.
So do you know if, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say one thing.
Yes.
So whenever families are what we call on the wait list, we immediately send them this resource called free and low to no cost options. Which you can find on our website, but it includes everything from Head Start to FCIO programs to directing them to Patch and subsidy options. And but there also is a line that tells them a direct connect straight to preschool open doors. And so
maybe that's where the disconnect is, trying to wait for approval for POE, which takes a long time. So I don't know the time frame, but all I know is it takes a long time. So maybe that's what's holding up
For what the POT
to get preschool open doors. Families take a while to get approval. Yeah, because it kind of doesn't make sense.
So they're not applying to the community base, they're not,
Because they need to get that approval first.
that's why they're
Yeah,
applying for multiple EOEL schools.
correct. So it's financial is what it is.
And
Yeah.
Stephanie has her hand up, so
That's it.
Stephanie asks. Or
I
give
don't
a
know
comment?
if you want to close anything out with that question, or
I don't know the details of the processing time on preschool open doors.
you may have answered that. Internet's a little. Can you go back to the slide that showed the schools that were red and green? So in the schools where there was a lot of red, a lot of out of area applications, how is an out of area application weighed against an application from a student in that home district? I know we have priorities and that's kind of the list that you move through, but I'm just wondering how, like, if families in those neighborhoods are being boxed out of preschool opportunities because of out of district applications
Yeah,
that may have
that's a
higher
really good.
priorities, but also do have a pre-K program in there.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So we have our statute identifies priority categories, which we must elevate amongst all applications. And then we do give preference to children who belong to that school because they will automatically matriculate to kindergarten, where other children will have to apply for a geographic exception, which they may or may not get. So the way when the applications come in, we look at children who belong to a priority category and that school, and those are all pushed straight up to the top. Then there's a phase after that where we look at priority categories but do not belong to the home school, and they are elevated again due to statute. So the whole first two big chunks of children who belong to priority categories. After that, it becomes general enrollment if there happens to be any seats available. But as you could see from Remy's presentation, the majority of our children do belong to a priority category. So there's usually very limited seats afterwards for children who do not meet any priority category.
Alana has her hand up. Alana?
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Remy, for putting together this. It's very helpful to see based on the applications that you folks have received. But I was curious, and apologize if I missed it, but are you able to overlay ages of who've applied? So the 3-year-olds versus the 4-year-olds. And I'm also curious if you see like I'm sorry, I'm having mom brain, so I'm trying to think of the right how to phrase it, but the reoccurring enrollment. So say a 3-year-old who re-enrolls for the following year.
So let's see. Oh, I think we had it here. So we didn't have here, but yes, so we do roll at the end of, for example, at the end of this school year, we will send a notice to all 3-year-olds to see whether or not their parents want to continue to keep them in the program. So that's a really good question. We can get that answer to you unless Remy knows it. Remy, do you know how many 3-year-olds were interested in enrolling for this past school year?
No, I don't have it on the top of my head here, but I can find out and I can share that with you later.
Next, sorry,
Like,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, that one has.
This is just, so this would show that there's, there were 1,500 3-year-old applicants, but I wonder, Alana, are you saying like, if we just pulled out the 3-year-old applicants, where would they be distributed? Like, what would their pattern look like in terms of their applications?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a way to compare the two, that would be pretty interesting.
And Stephanie has another comment.
Sorry, only if Alana's is how. Okay. You go back to that table with the graph you had. Sorry, apologize for my internet.
Okay, Stephanie, just hold on this. Hold your thought. Okay, I'm going to answer Alana. So Alana, it seems like you asked about how many, what was the count of students that were reapplying to the program, right? And so of the applicants, it was the count is about 500. So it's about like out of 3,500. Right. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Stephanie?
Sorry, thanks.
Thank
Do you
you.
mind going back to that graph that was up earlier? And so I just want to check for my understanding, the one with the hotspots. I want to check for understanding, and then I have another question. Okay, so if I am a family in the Kainalu homeschool district, and I'm just picking this because I live on the windward side, so I know these schools. And I don't have any priority categories. I don't meet any of the priority categories. A student from Blanche who meets most of the priority categories could get placed into Kainalu, and then I would potentially not have a seat for my kid at Kainalu because my family, even though we're in the home district, doesn't meet any of the priority categories.
Yes, so
Is
you're
that
correct. So
correct? So then
yes,
I would either have to. Okay. So then as a parent, I would then either have to find a private provider or do a GE to like all of or several of the pre-K programs around my community to find one that would have room. Even
Yes.
though the student from Blanche or Haia, any of the non-red zones, even though those students have access to a public pre-K program in their neighborhood that they could attend, they receive priority over. So I just am wondering about that. Like, there's something I understand if a family is coming from a community that doesn't have a program sitting right to me, that then we're asking families to commute and creating an additional burden on families. And I think when there is a school in the home districts, so I'm just kind of mulling on that. There's something about that doesn't sit right. And then I think this chart is really interesting to also overlay some we were able to the community based providers that are also in these sort of hotspot areas, to kind of paint a picture of what's really happening in those communities in terms of access, and availability.
So you're correct. So let me back up again. So for example, like Blanche Pope is green right now because they have, I think, one application less than 20, which is their max seat. So that's why it's green. If there's a child right now who lives in the Blanche Pope area that meets a priority category and that family applies to Pope and also to Kainalu, they would get, they get, because there's a seat available at their homeschool, they will get their homeschool. So if there are seats in homeschools and non-homeschools, the homeschool will always go first before we stick them into a different place. And there's no GEs for pre-K. And so that's the one thing that we just have to be very clear with our families is that, so number one, not all public schools have space for pre-K. We're really close to maxing it all out. So like, unless something happens with public school enrollment, like we are close to a cap unless there's new builds. And so how do we continue to serve all of these children and families that are looking for places when there could possibly be no other space left on public school campuses without new builds? And so, but again, back to your point, Stephanie, you're correct. Number one, we serve the priority categories in our statute. And number two, we always, if the homeschool has a spot, they will always go homeschool first before they get funneled out to the broader community.
It's complicated.
Yeah,
I know
sorry.
what-
So I think, sorry, my internet broke up for a lot of that, but I think what you're saying is we have so many families with priority categories that we're filling all of those seats first so that every family who has a priority category is taken care of, and then we'll filter in the others. And so that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. It just dawned on me. I thought if we had an IEP, that DOE was federally mandated to accept them at their home school for special ed.
Yeah, so.
versus taking seats from.
So the DOE is responsible for fully self-contained, fully early childhood special education. So EOEL is not a fully self-contained, so therefore students who should be in a general education setting. The DOE does not have a general education placement for children with special education services. So those students right now are being placed in EOEL or charter or Head Start, and maybe some community-based providers, but that data is not very clear or available to us at this time. Yeah. So EOEL is not for all children with IEPs, it's for, if the IEP team has to determine that the child, the best placement for them is in a general education setting.
So certain levels, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should move on.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, but thank you for the questions. Really
But
appreciate it.
thank you, and we would love to continue to dig into this, like, if we could get a very accurate, community-based provider care information, we would love to run this.
That should have that. Should.
Yes, our understanding though is that the kind of reporting that may be helpful to this kind of an analysis is optional.
For the
So
programs to share with.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And then the other piece that we would love to layer on is preschool open doors, because we have been asked numerous times to how does EOEL interact with preschool open doors. So if we could run this kind of an analysis, we would love to.
That would be a perfect marriage, actually.
Okay. So for early learning, we have Yvette from our EOEL Public Pre-K team to speak to this. Is she on? Yeah. One moment, Kevin needs to unmute you. Okay, you wanna try?
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I am Yvette. I am one of the state office teachers. So I coach and mentor the public pre-K teachers with EOEL. Right now, currently, actually today, we had one of our induction series. So these are for new classrooms that are coming on board for the school year of 26-27. And we are providing for them a 4-part series to welcome them into our program. And it's to support our new school teams, to prepare them to open the public pre-K classrooms. We are finishing off our first session today. Today, we talked about the program overview, the memorandum of agreement, and the application system overview. And then in March, we'll have our session 2 with the schools and their admin, and we're going to be talking about the access to high quality high quality curriculum, and then how young children learn. We're going to be talking about developmentally appropriate practices and the program standards of quality. And then again in session 3 in April, we'll be talking about how we assess, we observe our observation and documentation and assessment, and then also talking about quality interactions and relationships and high quality early childhood curriculum. And then lastly, session 4 is going to be going over early learning development standards that we use in our classrooms, our learning environments, and quality materials that we provide for our classrooms. So today, one of the highlights that we did for this first session is to play the brain game. It is to the participants took a deeper dive into understanding healthy brain development. And we know that the first 5 years of life are important. So we played the brain game to support the school team's understanding of the inner workings of brain architecture and how adverse childhood experiences, toxic stress, and protective factors play a role in shaping the development of a young child's brain. So really today we were going over the foundation of how young children's brains work. Next. So grounding new schools in the why behind the EOEL pre-K and why we serve the children and families that we do lays the foundation for a commitment to high quality early learning experiences and investment in our program. The participating schools agreed to uphold by signing our memorandum of agreement each year. And these are just the highlights that are included in the memorandum of agreements, the priority categories that we have laid out for them. We went over this today so that the schools are aware of what it is expected in the pre-K program. I believe that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to family support, Tara or Heather?
Okay, I guess it's me. Heather and I here were very fortunate to attend the Hawaii K-12 Parent and School Expo. And that was held Sunday, January 25th at the Bishop Museum. It was a new location for this event this year. That was a really great location. There was over 400 families that attended. And it was a really nice opportunity to meet with many parents and caregivers. One of the unique things with this expo was this was my first year doing it, and I thought because it said K-12 that it would just be parents of K-12. But there were a lot of families that may have school-age children, but also had an infant or had a preschooler. So we had a great opportunity to talk to them about pre-K opportunities in the state, and also talk to them about the First 5 Hawaii portal and going on the portal and finding out what programs they may qualify for. So it was a really great expo.
Yep, coming up next weekend. So we have the ICMH Big Ten event, Infant and Early Child Mental Health State Plan. And what we're kind of doing here is we're bringing together health and mental health providers, educators, family support organizations, different agencies to strengthen collaboration around social and emotional well-being for children. We're looking at how this work will go forward and move forward after the ending of this Big Ten event, as well as celebrating the big successes of the ICMH state plan to date. So this is a huge component of our early learning system, and we are excited and optimistic about some new opportunities that are coming up with ICMH and the Department of Health. But this event is coming up, and it's really good. Feedback it's been an exciting time to get a bunch of collaborators in the same space to talk about it and build the system out. So just a PSA for everybody, what's happening. Okay, and me again. The Transition Summit happened in December. This was going to be on the January docket, but I was late getting it in, so my apologies on that, but it is worth noting. So the Preschool Interagency State Team recently hosted the Transition Summit, which brought together interagency partners and community providers to strengthen coordination for children transitioning from early intervention Part C to preschool services under Part B. As part of the discussions that we had during this summit, where partners were asked to share the resources they currently use to support families during this transition process. One clear request from community providers was the development of a simple one-page overview describing Head Start, charter schools, EOL pre-K programs to help families better understand some of the options that children have as they exit EI services and enter into the preschool environment. So currently the EOEL pre-K team and the Head Start Collaboration Office, we're going to work together to develop this resource for our communities. And I'd also like to thank P20 for their financial and planning support of the gathering. And some feedback from participants highlighted how valuable this convening was. And we're hopeful that it can become maybe an annual event to sustain collaboration and strengthen statewide community-based transitions and referral networks. So this was a great event. We hope to see it continue.
Oh, let me go back. Oh wait. Can I just keep running through and then we can do comments? Okay. Heather?
I think Allison is.
Oh, Allison?
I'm actually
Okay.
taking this one. So our 2025 to 2030 Hawaii Early Childhood State Plan has officially been released. We were hoping to have an event with the governor on Monday, which unfortunately was canceled due to the weather. But we will be hosting a Celebrate and Activate event coming up on March 9th, which is kind of marking our transition point from the development and creation of the state plan to the actual implementation. I know Heather's going to talk about that a little bit more later on. But if you would like to view the state plan, it is currently available on the EOEL website, and I can drop the link in the chat when I'm done presenting. And then we have an update. We shared about our 2026 PDGB 5 system building grant that we were awarded that at the end of 2025. And so we had our official support team kickoff meeting in January. And on this slide here is kind of the best summary of the projects that are included within this 1-year grant. Just a reminder, I know we've shared before, but this particular PDG grant was structured differently than past grants. So we have the 3 critical elements, and then the bulk of the projects really fall within critical element 2, which is outcome strategies. Critical element 1 looked at a needs assessment and state plan, but seeing as we just completed those, we're looking at the implementation of the state plan in that piece. So as an update, because this is a 1-year grant, we are going to be providing updates on these projects monthly to the ELB. We have asked our project partners who are kind of taking the reins on some of these pieces, as well as EOEL, to present on some of these projects each month. So each project will be shared and given updates twice throughout the next year. Yeah, I think that's that. So we can go to the next slide. So this month we are sharing updates on the state plan dashboard and the building block network. So our goals with the state plan dashboard is really coming out of the state plan. So it's to collect and aggregate program level and system level data related to the goals and action priorities within the state plan. So doing that, we hope to highlight system features and demonstrate alignment both with the PDG systems building grant priorities and our state's long-term goals. And ultimately, we want to provide snapshots that support ongoing decision-making as it relates to those goals. We are planning to spend the majority of this year actually collecting and gathering that data. It's going to be a process. We have some volunteers through the state plan that offered to share the data components that they have. So we will be collecting that, formatting it, making agreements with the goal at the end of the year, having something to share. And the next slide, I think this is the part Heather's going to take.
So this is one of our projects. It's the Building Block Network, and it's going to launch alongside the, it's going to launch on March 9th at our event. So it's moving us from the planning stage to implementation. It expands to invite new contributors and evolves to encourage participation in all blocks. The building block committees were designed to build the plan. And when we were setting up the building block committees, people wanted to sit on more than one committee. They had interest in building block 2 and 4. At that time, we asked people to specialize and to stay with one block. Now with the network, we're asking people to look at all of the areas. So we will be supporting engagement through quarterly newsletters and 1 to 2 in-person network meetings, an annual symposium to review progress, analyze data, the challenges, and coordinate cross-agency efforts. And we will also be hosting community town halls across the state to share updates with families, to gather feedback, and increase statewide ownership of the state.
And that is our last slide. Any comments from the board? Thank you for all the work on the state plan, and here's the hard copy. And as someone who has been in this for a long time, for me, it's been really gratifying to see, and a lot of you who have also been in this for a long time, we would struggle to see where is something going to live, right? Here, we get a coalition to develop things, and then where is it going to live? So right now, like the first 5 Hawaii, it's in EOEL, which makes sense, right? And before EOEL had the capacity to do that, and we still were struggling with where are we gonna have things live. So it's just been very gratifying and to see that we're continuing that momentum, and I hope to see people continue to be engaged in this process, because we want to keep everybody informed and engaged and getting their input. So thank you, everybody. Any other board members have comments? Any comments from the public? Wow, we're on time. We'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, so we'll be back at 3 o'clock. Okay. Okay, welcome back. We have two guests today. So we have an overview of Hawaiian language early learning, Olelo Hawaii community-based programs. So this month we have Hapunana Leo, and I don't know if I'm going to say it very slowly. Haka Ula o He'eliko Lani College of Hawaiian Language. And other programs that are doing Hawaiian language early learning are welcome to present at the board. Just let me know. But today I really welcome and mahalo. So we're going to start with the aha. So oops, let me stop sharing so that Ka'i'ilani can share.
Okay, we are gonna share, just making sure everyone can see this.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, aloha nui kako o Ka'i'ilani laiha, ahapuna leo. Mahalo again for the invitation to present. I know that some of you are familiar with me from previously sitting on the board or working in the industry, and also my testimonies that I've been able to provide to the board. So just want to start here, Eola Ko'olelo Hawaii. That is our vision statement for Ahapunana Leo, and that's saying the Hawaiian language shall thrive. It's a thriving language that we're going to revitalize and working to do that. Before getting into the specifics about our program, I think it's really important to familiarize everyone with the historical context of Hawaiian language to understand our program and why it was established. So to set that context, in the 19th century, Hawaiian language was the normal language of Hawaii, with all the different ethnicities and nationalities that were living here in Hawaii. Hawaiian language was the language of our government, of our business, of our education, our bank ads, our newspapers were all conducted and delivered through Hawaiian language. So much so that we actually had a public school system established in 1840, which is our current Department of Education. I did want to highlight that by the mid-1850s, we actually had up to 400 schools under the Department of Education, all conducted through Hawaiian language. And it wasn't until later in, after that peak of our Hawaiian language medium schools that we started to see a decline. We all know that we had our 1893 overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Shortly after that, we had Act 57 that passed that restricted the use of Hawaiian language in schools. And right after that, we really started to see a rapid decline as English dominated our communities and resulted in what we have today. The 1980s is where we started to have some community members realize that Hawaiian language was near the brink of extinction. During that time, there was a survey that was put out, and we counted less than 50 Hawaiian language speakers under the age of 18. So again, from having that fully established community, from having 400 schools, all conducted in Olelo, Hawaii, down to less than 50 under the age of 18. So that's a huge rapid decline. And so in 1983, 501c3 Ahapuna Leo was developed to revitalize Hawaiian language. And this was founded by a small group of community members, educators, and really families that made it their mission to revitalize our Olelo Hawaii. And education was chosen as the strategy to revitalize that. We currently have Hawaiian medium education curriculum development and training programs. You guys can imagine that we do not have the same access to resources, any sort of resources that English medium programs or any other major language, mainstream language has. So we do provide our own training programs. We also provide online language learning, not only for our current families, but for external parties as well. I did want to highlight too that we have national and international recognition. We're a resource for Indigenous language revitalization. We are a partner in Native American Language Resource Center, and hoping that Ka'i will touch a little bit on that later in her presentation. Also highlighting our global status under the United Nations. We do have the Economic and Social Council special consultative status that we participate in annually to provide input on language revitalization. Moving on to our current day, Kula Kamali'i. This is our licensed childcare centers, our preschools. We have 12 licensed childcare centers across the state, 2 licensed infant toddler centers, which means that we're serving ages 9 months to 5 years until they're ready to enter kindergarten. We typically have between 300 to 350 children in our program each year. This year, I've mentioned in my public testimonies at these meetings that we've seen a huge decrease in that. We've dropped below 300 for the first time in many years. I did want to also let you folks know that we are accredited by WINHEC, the World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium. We were the first early learning program to be accredited by WINHEC in 2014 and recently reaccredited in 2024. Our program is full day. It's an 8-hour program with 11 months that we're serving families. And this is really in alignment with the language acquisition requirements that we're trying to achieve for the children that are entering our programs. The majority of our families are not speaking Hawaiian language at home. It's something that they need to acquire during our program. Our full day program is conducted entirely through Hawaiian language. No English is allowed on our campuses. If we are speaking in front of the children, it will be in Hawaiian language. Even if it's with the parents that are English speakers, we'll need to pull them on the side or go to a designated area to have those conversations if it is done in English. I also put on here our Hakalama literacy program. I think it's really important to understand this is an example of the difference in curriculum that we provide. It's based on Hawaiian knowledge base of learning. It does not align with learning English literacy. Our children that go through our literacy program at Punana Leo typically are graduating at that 5-year-old mark, reading paragraphs because linguistically that is attainable in Hawaiian language. We have a syllabary that we're using similar to other languages, but very different from learning English. We also have required family engagement, again, a necessity for language revitalization. If you can imagine, like I mentioned, many of our families are coming into our program not speaking Hawaiian language, so we require our families to learn the language alongside their children so they can support that. We have language learning classes that we provide and require the families attend. And that's just one of our family engagement requirements. We do have others. I wanted to highlight this too. So while preparing for this presentation, I went back and looked at, what other information was sent over or presented to the EOEL. And I came across a presentation that we shared with Yuko, and I believe it was Lane too, was on that visit. They came to visit us at our demonstration site in Hilo, where we have our infant toddler center all the way up to our 12th grade partnership program with Navihio Kalani Pu'u, and then again going to Kaho'ula Ke'ili Kolani. We actually had this meeting there, and this was right when we were starting to see the impacts or start to prepare to implement for Act 46 and the expansion of public pre-K. And this was a slide that was presented at that meeting. So in 2022, which was 4 years ago now, we had already began to raise concerns about opening English medium pre-K, opening even Hawaiian medium pre-K under the EOEL that's not centered on the focus of language revitalization. And then also highlighted the need to make sure that we're working in partnership with the systems that exist currently so that we don't lose or set back the progress that we've made with language revitalization today. And then I wanted to go into this. So the intent of Act 46, just to show and highlight the things that are bolded is what I wanted to focus on. And I'm going to tie this back to our program on the next slide. But again, just looking at those bolded words, that the purpose of this act was to expand the capacity for those in financial need and in lesser served areas, highlighting otherwise unserved children. And then we did have a piece in there that was supposed to support the current, progress of Hawaiian language revitalization and education being provided through the medium of Hawaiian language. So I brought this up in my testimony before, but for example, 2 years ago, we did have Punana Leo Ohana, which had 24 licensed seats. We were supplanted by the EOEL program that is now open. And I'm saying that because all of our families moved over to the EOEL program. Our teachers also moved over to the EOEL program. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that classroom is licensed, or not licensed, but provides 20 seats. So in that community, which is a very small, tight-knit community, actually that Hula Kaiapuni there started because of the initiatives, like many of the other Hula Kaiapuni, started because the Punana Leo was there. That community asked us to go there, we set it up. And what resulted in, after the opening of the EOEL classroom, was a net loss of 4 seats. So that's what I'm asking when I'm talking about the net loss, and we need to look at current providers and the supplanting. This was a real life example that we as a private provider experienced, and the impact not only on us as a private provider, but being a Hawaiian language revitalization organization, the negative impact on that picture is tenfold, because Hawaiian language is in such a fragile state. And I think that's really important to remember, that how we do things still matters. The programs that we provide that we're calling Hawaiian language programs need to achieve and be aligned with language revitalization in order to keep the momentum and the progress that we have, or we will see a huge setback. It takes one generation to lose that. The following slides I provided have some of the legislation that supports these things that I'm talking about in terms of establishing Hawaiian language programs, using community expertise. I'm going to quickly go through them. They're there if you'd like to read them, but I'm not going to spend much time there. The establishment of the Hawaiian Language College, I'm hoping that you will follow up on this one a little bit. But I did want to put in there that we do have recognition on a federal level for the revitalization of these kind of languages under the NALA Act. And then I'll spend a little more time here just highlighting that we do have policies that are implemented to support this already. And we want to make sure that whatever we're doing now, whatever policies are being put in place and how we're executing them or implementing them are in support of the revitalization of that language. In addition, the Clarabelle decision, that was a more recent Supreme Court decision. I just want to highlight that it does say that the Hawaiian education program in public schools is supposed to be reviving the Hawaiian language. So what we're doing in public education should be reviving it and working towards that, which means working within the structures that we have to support that, working with the entities that we have that know what to do, how to do it, have the experience to do it. So I just wanted to highlight that. If you guys have questions on things specific to Punana Leo, my contact information is there. I would love to chat more about that, but I'm gonna also put up Ki'iwi's slides.
Why don't we ask, I'll have the board, if anybody from the board has questions or comments.
I just have a question on data. What do we have, or does anybody have? Oh, I guess anybody, or Rainy, if you're still on. Does anybody have data around those families, especially in Hana? The ones that you mentioned, the seats were supplanted. What the thinking of the families were. Do we know what happened, or do?
So I can explain what happened in Hana in relationship to what happened to EOEL. So this is the year that EOEL received 55 seats to open up EOEL public pre-K. The first year we opened 11 classrooms, and the second year there was 44. So the year that they asked for 44, we were approached by OHE to let us know that there were places that were interested in EOEL public pre-K. And so we know that Ahapunana Leo serves Hawaiian language pre-K, and we did not have people in our space. So we sent them the list of the names of the schools that were interested. And then that was like in October.
We sent to
Kaiulani. And then probably like in February, we were contacted again because they said the schools have not yet heard from EOEL. And so we reached out, and at that time, there was something happening in Hana. I don't know what was happening. And we were told people want to become EOEL teachers and what have you. And I said, we're not trying to supplant anybody. And you go have that conversation with Ahapunana Leo, because we don't want to get into the middle of this conversation. What actually ended up happening was that we only had 44 classroom seats left, and Hana would have been 45. So we did not have space to welcome Hana into EOEL. So they were actually seed funded by a different community partner. When they actually transitioned out of Ahapunana Leo, they were not EOEL. Then the following year, we went in to ask for 50 more seats for EOEL public pre-K. And at that time, they reapplied again to become a part of EOEL public pre-K. And so from our perspective,
reapplied
on it. Yes. Because at that time they were being temporarily seed funded, because I did not have a 45th set of teacher and EA pairs.
Here, so I have a question, real fast.
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
So Hana asked for an EOEL classroom.
They did.
While they had an Ahapunana Leo classroom.
They did.
At their site.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. And then why would they do that? Did they mention?
So all I know is that they said the teacher And this is all that I heard. I didn't talk to any of the families or communities.
Oh,
Right, so I did not hear this. So what was the contact that was made to me? People want to work for EOEL and become an EOEL public pre-K.
and why is that? Is
I
it
wasn't
paid?
I don't know. I was not asking because I was not intending on taking them.
Oh,
Because I said, we're not here to try to close down programs. It's the same thing. Ephraim knows this too, because we've had lots of conversations with Head Start, lots of them. And everybody knows, like, we go walking around schools or like, and you know this one, I'm like, don't talk to me about that. I'm not gonna close out Head Starts. You need to go talk to the program. If you have a problem with them, we can facilitate conversations and dialogue around this, but Ephraim has to be involved in these conversations. And so we try to close the gap that way. So this one, I said, I'm not having this conversation with you, actually. You need to go and have a conversation with, put on a layoff, there's some kind of a issue happening there.
and this is the principal you're talking to?
Yes. And then we moved on because we only had 44 slots to open that year. And my understanding is that they were seed funded by another community organization.
Who was that?
Kamehameha.
Did the principal talk to you folks?
We had discussions with the principal, which again, I think part of the issue for identifying what sites to open at is that it comes down to one individual, which is just a principal. So if that request goes in, it's taken as that's the mana'o of that area. And there's no other analysis of what providers would be impacted, who's attending there, do those students or families qualify or get POD, for example, or other private provider assistance. And I'm bringing that up because HANA was one of those areas that we had extremely high, maybe even 100% of our students who were eligible for some kind of tuition aid. And we always are assisting families in seeking that. So when we're looking at the options, I think part of the issue is that idea of free. What's available and how it's being marketed to a family when it's being sold as free public pre-K. And not understanding that there might be ways to access childcare for little to no cost through a private provider that is in existence in the community. I do think that that's an area that kind of misleads families and maybe also pushes the principal or families to think, oh, this is a option that we should ask for.
Is that true that only the principal's word is taken as
So
how we make our decisions?
So principals have to, they have to be willing to be a part of the program. So HANA, like a while ago, HANA was previously a part of EOEL, like a long time ago. But actually, HANA was one of the first sites that wanted to serve 3-year-olds. And HANA is actually a big reason why EOEL eventually expanded to 3-year-olds. So HANA was one of the first cohorts in EOEL when we were only serving 4-year-olds. They wanted to serve 3-year-olds, so they pulled out of EOEL a long time ago. And then they were seed funded by Kamehameha so that they could support 3 and 4-year-olds. This is a while back, all the way up. Then HANA wanted to come once. So we had caught wind that people wanted 3-year-olds in EOEL public pre-K. And this is when the realignment was happening with preschool open doors. So looking systemically, charter schools were already doing 3 and 4-year-olds. They were going to be expanding preschool open doors to 3 and 4-year-olds. And so why would we stay only as 4-year-olds? And they were going to introduce some sort of legislation or what have you. And so we had to really think about what do we think about shifting to be in alignment with the broader early learning system. And that is when EOEL decided to change to 3-year and 4-year-olds, and HANA came back to join us for English language at the time. But then There were, let's see, there were, sometime before I came on, so there were sites that were already interested in Hawaiian language pre-K. So, when I joined EOEL in 2022, a community seed funded an English and a Hawaiian language pre-K at Pope Elementary School. That was my first year I came here, but that decision was already made. And so, but however, that first year they were not able to find the Hawaiian language teacher. And so that first year that I was in EOEL, it went by with nothing, but I could already see that this was going to be on the move. Then after that, we found out that Hau'ula was interested, Lanai was interested, especially when we're talking about the Clarabelle case. Lanai is where that was originated from. And then also Hana. And so then we saw this need for schools who wanted to have both English and Hawaiian language on their campus. So we know that Kaipuni schools in the DOE grew out from Ahapunana Leo sites, with the exception of Pope, is my understanding. I don't know how Pope started or that happened. I'm not really sure. Or even Lanai, because, well, we know this, but they don't have Hawaiian language pre-K on Lanai until EOEL. They asked for EOEL support. So
they asked for EOEL to bring Hawaiian language
pre-K,
or just English speaking.
So they already had it. They had
English speaking, and they're asking for Hawaii.
Yes. So Hau'ula has an English and Hawaiian, Pope English and Hawaiian, Hana English and Hawaiian, Lanai English and Hawaiian. And so we can see how principals are trying to serve both communities that they're responsible for. And so the willingness of the principal is really huge. The willingness to participate in the ongoing professional development. It can be a little bit of a strain for school communities who have a hard time trying to find substitutes and what have you, but ultimately, when you look at the results of schools and things, school principals and the department is who bears the brunt of, things that happen on their school community, in their school communities. So we do pay attention to what is the desire of school principals, but at the time, especially with Hana, they were already being funded. So when this community partner seed funds, public education in a public school, the teachers already belong to the union. It's like a publicly funded program, but with private dollars. And so we know that seed funding is temporary. And so we kind of take a look at that to see whether or not we can sustain it, or will this program close eventually at some point in time. So that's why we chose to pick up Hana. It was a public.
So it was the historical context.
It was a seed funded site, just like Pope was a seed funded site. And we had other EOEL English language programs that were seed funded sites in the past that we assumed as well. Knowing that seed funding is intended to be maybe 2 years or 3 years, but actually Hana's, when they were serving 3 and 4 year olds, was, I think, a longer duration of a period of time.
So because of that, we did not feel, is it correct that we did not feel that getting thoughts from community was necessary? Is that because it had already been in place?
So I knew Ahapunana there was in Hana. I knew something was happening there. I knew that. Whatever happened, I'm not sure. They became seed funded site, and then we came in after that. So this whole transition period, I don't know what that was, but we were not part of that. We came in after. And so by the time we came in, Ahapunana Leo, for whatever reason, was not serving that school site for whatever that reason was. So by the time we came in, it was just looking at a seed funded site and seeing if we could sustain the funding for the site.
Do you know why they weren't, you folks weren't serving them at that?
We were actually still serving them. It was still Punana Leo Ohana in the year prior to you guys taking it on. I think there was real intention with hopes that something would work out, that we'd be able to keep the Punana Leo there. But again, I think that this is just one example of how things, because the community assessment wasn't done. The seed program, to my understanding, was set up with the intent for it to roll into a public education program. So as soon as that process starts, there's already an agreement. The principal already is starting to talk to, the different entities that may be an option for them. Whether that's public charter, whether that is EOEL. And I think that could be a breaking point, but I'm using that as an example because that did happen, but we're seeing something similar happen that was not seed funded at our Ko'olau site, which is at Pu'ohala. We have 2 classrooms there. Last year, we almost got kicked out. It was all on the news because they were running out of classroom space. This year at the meeting that I attended. Pu'ohala. Pu'ohala. That is the meeting I attended and saw that there's 2 EOEL classrooms, 1 Hawaiian language and 1 English. So I was very shocked to see that. I did talk to our facilities contacts there, and that Hawaiian language classroom will be located in a different building than the Kaiapuni classrooms and what Punana Leo is. But again, we're gonna quickly see what the result of that is when you have a free EOEL program. Again, even the fact that it's located separate from the Kaiapuni, it shows that there's a misalignment to language revitalization, and a lack of assessing the community. We have open seats there. We don't have a wait list there. We have a lot of open seats there. And just to give a little bit of statistics, right now, this current school year, we have about 80% of our families that are currently receiving tuition aid. We have 7% that are waiting to hear back from POD. And others that if for some reason they don't qualify or need assistance, we provide that assistance. So there's this message going on that we actually heard from the school saying that this EOEL classroom will be for those who can't afford Punana Leo, which I think is just huge misinformation because there's other resources that we help families access in addition to providing resources from our own resources to support these families in getting Hawaiian language education.
So that could be potentially the main issue right there, just that, because I think we all know, right, when we fought for Act, I mean, not all we of us, but like when some of us were fighting for Act 46 at the time and then Act 210, it was to ensure that those babies who did not have access to early learning, like my children. I mean, I had to eat rice and food so that my children could get into early learning. But it was for those children to get into a classroom, right? And not just Punana. It wasn't for Punana, it was just so that our kids could get on every child. Specifically because I was at Kumina schools, it was for every Native Hawaiian child to be up at the same level as our counterparts so that we're not on the track to prison, right? Because we're 50% or more in the prison system. And we've seen data starting from early learning. So the main reason was so that we could make sure that Native Hawaiians would have early learning. However, if we are, maybe if it is an issue just around communication as it relates to funding, is there a way that we could potentially solve that issue? around communication as it relates to
Okay,
funding.
I'm going to kind of, this is a really important conversation. And I have other people wanting to weigh in. And I also am conscious of Kaiu needs to do her presentation. So can I, Kau'i, is it okay if we pause there?
May I just make one comment
Okay.
quickly? So, Hana was very different than Pu'ahala. So when we look at so we have had schools who have requested additional rooms, but when we look at application data, it cannot justify another room being added to a certain location. So we have told people no. But one thing that's very interesting about Pu'ahala, so Pu'ahala location is also like maybe a mile and a half away from another Hawaiian language pre-K program, a private pre-K provider. So when you look at the island, we have our Pope Hawaiian language program out here. They currently have 35 applications for only 20 seats in their Hawaiian language program. And then when you look way out here at Hau'ula, there was 37 applications for their 20 seats at Hau'ula. And then you have Pu'ahala, which is like right in the middle. We have also had the community-based Hawaiian language, the other program, who have said that children should not be on a waiting list, and have said that some families come to her Kaneohe location from Waimanalo too, because there's no spot. So when we look at this, 35, 37, so that's at least 15 here and 17 here. Like, there's more than enough to fill the middle here. And I think that, like I said, we cannot tell people, go and look at this program or go look at this, but we can give them their low to no cost resources, which has all the things that they can look into. And then they can choose which programs they want to go to, but we know that there's need when we look at the Pope and the Hau'ula data, and then this site is directly right in the middle of both.
Thank you. Stephanie will go next, and then Napua is after her. Stephanie?
Thank you. I have a few questions. Ka'iulani, thank you so much for your presentation first. Do you know what the average cost is per student to attend Punana Leo? Like after the subsidies and all of the resources they can get.
Are you looking? Oh, I unmuted. Are you looking specifically for the tuition that is there or the actual cost? Because right now our tuition that is publicly available or that we put out there is about half the cost of what it actually costs to educate a child.
I'm curious about like if I were to enroll my daughter, like, and I'm just she's just an average kid, like what is the average cost to the family? Taking into account, you mentioned a lot of the financial resources and supports that you all offer. So how does that end up averaging out in terms of cost per student? So I know you have the publicly published tuition, but after all of that support, do you have the data on what the average really is?
I wouldn't be able to give you the average in that way. Like I said, we have about 80% of families that are getting financial assistance of some sort this year. And the majority of those families are very, very low contributions. I don't have the average, but it's likely around $50 to $200 a month.
Okay. And then, sorry, I'm just taking notes for myself. I think, do you have data? You've mentioned a couple of sites now. Do you kind of have an overall snapshot of data across your sites where you're seeing changes and trends happening?
We do have the enrollment per site that we track. And like all early learning data, it does fluctuate per year. So we try to monitor that. We know what sites typically have huge demand. Those sites continue to have strong demand. But just across the board, we saw a decline in enrollment. And I mentioned at one of the meetings that we actually surveyed the families that were gonna be moving on into enrolling and declined the position. 45 of those families this current school year said it was because they were accepted into a public program.
Did you ask them, like, if all things had been equal, so if Punana Leo was free, same cost factor as a DOE pre-K or an EOEL pre-K, would they have stayed with Punana Leo? Like, was it purely a financial driver, or were there other reasons that they changed?
This year, because it was the first year that we surveyed on that, we weren't sure what kind of data we were gonna get, so it was just a general question of the reason why they were not attending. But I think that we could probably add that in for the coming school year to see if that would be a factor. I would also like to see if that could be done on the EOEL side, just to better understand their applicants. But again, I think part of the issue is that the schools are already established. So when you're offering that program, it becomes a forced choice. And I know a lot of us that work in under-resourced communities have a thorough understanding of what that means. And so I just want to say that right now is the issue, is that the EOEL programs are being opened in areas that are currently serving populations and have resources to support them financially.
I appreciate that. Like, I really appreciate, that sometimes choice really isn't actually choice. I think that's why I'm curious about, if all things were equal, would families have preferred to have stayed? And if that's the case, then there is like a clear policy agenda there around providing the subsidies to support it being a true choice for families. And I think that is something worth kind of locking arms and advocating for side by side to create the financial pathways to alleviate that financial burden for families. So I think that those data would be really helpful to try to make the case for something like that.
Yes, and I can affirm that with HANA, that was the case. We do know that we had discussions about it, and that was the issue, and it was also the pay issue for the teachers that ultimately moved everyone. It was a very hard decision for that community to work with their principal to accept that, they're moving away from Punana Leo, which is why we actually agreed for that first year of seed funding to continue the relationship and try to work a way through it. So I do want to be clear that the data that I presented about the decrease in enrollment and that huge decline that we're seeing didn't include HANA, because it was only between last year and this year where we weren't counting those numbers with us. And we do know that for those seats, those families in HANA, they did leave for the exact reason that we're talking about.
I think being able to really speak to that data point of like how many families would stay. I mean, the policy support is clear around language revitalization, and so I think there's an opportunity to explore there. And then this is my last question. I don't want to take up too much time. I appreciate your sentiments around community assessment, and I'm curious, based on sort of your deep understanding and work, do you have specific recommendations for changes or policies or things that you think could be incorporated into the school opening process that aren't there already? So I'm looking for like specific suggestions and recommendations.
Yes, so mahalo for the question. I appreciate it. I know that a couple of years ago, at the very beginning of Act 46, I was provided with a data point through an outside source which showed the net seats that were opening or closing. From the very beginning, it was a net loss that was showing. That was what I was told was that data was captured through Patch and surveyed the private providers as well as the public seats that were becoming available. And there was that net seat loss. With huge growth on the public side, I would imagine that we're gonna see that flip eventually. But I think that data point would be one that's great to monitor. And then if there's a way to survey the current private providers in the areas of the schools that have principals requesting a public pre-K classroom, I think that's very, very important We also used to have a map. When I was on the ELB, we had a map of the childcare deserts. I think bringing that back into the assessment process to making sure that we're serving those areas is really important. And I'm saying that with the understanding that it's very hard to understand childcare. It's 2 years, families move, the trends change. It's hard to track that data, but not using data and having no analysis to what's happening in that community, I think ultimately is gonna negatively impact private providers.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask Napur to speak.
Aloha kako. Aloha kako. Sorry, I have a slight cold, so I sound like I have a frog in my throat. Mahalo nui ka iulani for sharing about the language revitalization. I just wanted to make a comment to Kau'i. We did do a community assessment specifically for Hana as well as Blanche Pope before both of those schools were seed funded and had in-depth conversations prior to seed funding the Kayapuni classrooms. Hana's conversation was months long, and it was inclusive of all parties that was in Hana trying to find the best solution for that community, as well as a Hapunana Leo, the Hawaiian language provider there. And so we would never go into a community and make a unilateral decision and then just seed fund the classroom. And that's why we're very targeted. Our conversations with that particular community with Hana specifically was almost 2 years long.
I remember that.
Mahalo.
Okay, can we ask one more question? Okay. So, EOEL looked at our family data, and we had 5 families that identified that they were coming from an Ahapunanaleo. 2 applied to English. 3 were currently were applying to Hawaiian language programs, 1 on Maui and then 2 on Oahu. But eventually, out of all 5, only like 2 enrolled. But what I do know is I reported back in October that Navahi opened in Hilo. It's a Hawaiian language. They opened one in Hilo and one in Nanakuli. And I was wondering what the relationship when they say families left to go to public Hawaiian language pre-K. It may not be EOEL. It could possibly be at Navahi that just opened in October, like this school year, they opened 40 seats, 20 in one location and 20 in another location. So I'm wondering when families say that they're leaving to a public pre-K location, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an EOEL public pre-K location. It could be newly open Hawaiian language charter schools as well.
Okay. Yeah. I have a response to that. So Navahi is actually our partner site. So the 3 campuses that they operate public pre-K at are in partnership with Punana Leo and are not included in any of the stats that I gave you guys about children leaving. They're all the families and all the participation, we provide that programming to them.
I really appreciate you allowing me this time to come and share about Kahaka Ula Ke'elikola in the College of Hawaiian Language. I'm the director of the college, and I really appreciate all of the hard, critical, voluminous work that you do as the board and the staff to support our keiki and access to early learning opportunities. So just wanted to share a little bit about our college and kind of dovetailing from where Kaiulani left off, right? As a result of our Punanaleo keiki graduating out of Punanaleo back in the 80s, they needed someplace to continue. Back then, it was still illegal based on the 1896 law that bans Hawaiian language as the medium of education. So the very act or the very, So anywho, I'll get back to that later. But We needed to, we, as in the collective consortium, we, Ahapunanaleo, the families and the communities needed to work concertedly to get that medium of pathway available once again in the public pre-K, in the public K-12 arena. So that commitment by the Ahapunanaleo founders and the early families and supportive community, government, education officials resulted in the ability for kindergarten and on up to be opened for our families seeking Hawaiian language reclamation in their home through education. Like I said, that would not have been possible if it wasn't through unwavering advocacy of the communities. We've been able to establish now a comprehensive preschool through to PhD Hawaiian medium education pathway in partnership with Ahapunaleo and with our college. None of this would have been possible without these communities and without these advocacies. And I want to highlight, right, that in this process of 40 years of developing this pipeline from pre-K, or actually infant toddler now, up through to PhD, it relies heavily upon our ability to, our relationships in community, right? So Punaleos didn't appear unless that community had asked for that, and that built over time, tight relationships, advocacy that resulted in this capacity for infant toddler through to PhD. So I did want to acknowledge that in that partnership we have Ahapunanaleo has really resulted in the ability for us at the college level to build the programs that we have in order to support the pipeline. It's estimated that in 1893, the time of the overthrow, 90% of our population, Hawaiian or not by ethnicity, were fluent in Hawaiian language. Just a few decades later, in the 1980s, it's estimated that that population dramatically declined to 0.02% of Hawaii's population that could speak Hawaiian. Estimated that there were about 2,000 speakers at the time, and like Kaiulani mentioned, a majority of those speakers were above the age of 50, and therefore indicating language transformation not happening to younger generations. So 40 years later, we're seeing, and this photo is a great example of that, we're seeing a great increase and a great demand to increase Hawaiian medium education, Hawaiian immersion education. And today there's an estimated 2.3% of our population that speak Hawaiian. So based on census data, which conflicts a little bit with a slide that I saw earlier presented, the census from 2016 to 2024 in comparison shows that residents, the number of residents aged 5 and older speaking Hawaiian at home rose 48%, 18,400 people to 27,338. No other non-English language matched this growth. The surge is most dramatic in Hawaii County, where we're seeing an increase of 225% of Hawaiian language speakers being documented through that census. So among school-age children, 5 to 17, Hawaiian now ranks as the most spoken non-English home language throughout our island chain. The revival traces to the 1986 ban on Hawaiian medium education, nearly eradicating our language within decades. After that ban, the repeal happened in 1986. So this is the 40th anniversary of the repeal of that law that allowed for Hawaiian medium pathways to exist and to expand into public schools via Kaiapuni and other initiatives. Education was the strategy chosen to remove our Hawaiian language from our homes. Education is now the strategy chosen to put it back. And we're celebrating and seeing the numbers reflecting the hard work, intentional collaborations that are taking place in order to bring our language back up. So we are not only producing speakers, but we are producing speakers who are engaged, who are active, and who are out there spanning different sectors of community successfully, right? From government to commerce to education, entrepreneurship, and beyond, leading in new and culturally informed ways for our communities. So I wanted to say that because sometimes there's a concern that Hawaiian medium, Hawaiian immersion education is not going to produce successful or not going to set up our kids to be successful in the modern world. But I'm really proud to say that as a result of these efforts, these youth are pretty awesome. So I now turn to Kahakaula, okay, Elikolani, College of Hawaiian Language, who's a part of this consortium, working with Ahapunanaleo, and Kekula Unavihi, Okulani Opu'u. We were founded on a vision and a mission to Ola Okaolelo Keka'a Oko Maoli, our Hawaiian language is that fiber that ties us to our cultural identity. And in that, there is great importance to assure the revitalization and continued advancement for our language and our identity. A thriving language means that it will once again become commonplace in both traditional and contemporary contexts in Hawaii. And so our college joins communities, even though we're located in Hilo, we join communities across the Pai'aina, as well as across other indigenous communities, helping to collectively work together to keep our languages alive. We've been able to establish at the college level, what you would imagine, Bachelor's of Arts in Hawaiian Studies and Linguistics, Kahua Viola, our teacher graduate certification program, Master of Arts, as well as a PhD. These are our strategic alliances, which I alluded to earlier. The Hapunana Leo, which really started this whole journey 40 years ago in starting the preschool with the intent to bring fluent speakers with the babies, getting them together through the conduit of a kula kamali'i in order to return that language to the home. And from that effort moving forward, these are some of the critical partners that have been strategic in continuing to build the pipeline and also strengthening it where it's at. I can answer questions, but I'm going to blaze through just so that you can see what I really wanted to get at today was to share with you about our college's pipeline that helps to prepare qualified teachers as well as curriculum and other resources like assessments to support Hawaiian medium and Hawaiian immersion education statewide. So we offer courses that start from child development credentials all the way up through ECE certificates, specifically in Hawaiian and Indigenous language medium education, early education, bachelor's, our master's certificate program, Kahua Viola, which majority of our students who complete that master's certificate also go on for the complete master's degree in Indigenous language and cultural education. And we highly encourage them to continue on to a PhD if they're available, if they have capacity and time to do so. Specifically for Kahua Viola, it is an educational pathway that helps to prepare individuals to get out into the classrooms. We recognize the critical shortage of certified and prepared teachers. Currently in the Kaiapuni realm, there is about 125 vacancies, as well as teachers filling positions that perhaps they could use more support by getting credentialed and degreed. So Kahua Viola was specifically established to prepare and push out, right, qualified teachers to support our Hawaiian medium, Hawaiian Kaiapuni classrooms. Let's see. One thing I wanted to share is that this Kahua Viola is the first Hawaiian medium education teacher program, graduate certificate preparing teachers in classroom management, curriculum development. But equally as important, which I think sometimes this detail gets forgotten, is equally as important to that is preparing them to carry out their work completely through the Hawaiian language, through all contexts that they're going to experience as teachers or as administrators of schools. That is a detail that I think if you're not a multi-language speaker or a bilingual speaker, it's hard to grasp. But for fluency that's required to operate 100% successfully in a classroom, we estimate 1,100 hours of clinical experience are required for that. And so Kahua Viola is prepared to train and mentor these individuals so that they have complete confidence when they are in front of students, no matter what age, pre-K through to 12th grade. Here's a map of all of the Kula Kaiapuni and the Kaya Olelo Hawaii, including all of the Punana Leo that are across our Pai'aina. Kahua Viola has graduated 164 since it began in 1998, of which 88% of those graduates have gone on to the field of preschool through to PhD educators. Some of them are not teachers, they're curriculum developers, they're teacher mentors, they're working at the college level as professors and lecturers. But 67% of that 88 are teaching directly in preschool through 12th grade classrooms across the state. We also serve, as you can see, right, it's everywhere. So even though Kahakaʻula works very closely with Ahapunana Leo, we do support Kaiapuni and other Hawaiian language program sites across the state. through Kahua Viola, through also our curriculum development center, the Halekua Mo'o, which produces materials both digitally and in print media for all of those grades, pre-K up, and also materials and resources that support family learning and family engagement throughout that course of their child being pre-K up through 12th grade. And we distribute those materials statewide. To this day, this Halekua Mo'o stood up in 1989 as a result of legislative action. Until this day, it has been supported solely on our 98% on soft funds, making all of our resources to the schools available at free and or extremely low cost. Uluko is also a resource that our college maintains and expands and innovates. It's an online resource that contains dictionaries, collections of original source materials in Hawaiian language. Kani Aina, which is, I would encourage all of you to go. It's a huge resource, a collection of voices of native speakers from the 70s and 80s. When my uncle Larry, we were talking earlier, Elaine, recorded many of our kupuna from all various communities across the state. Working with the remaining families, he's been able to digitize that and make them accessible online. So hi. Okay, go. I can look away.
Yeah, this is on the website too. It's on the news.
Oh, that's we got it.
So I think the main takeaway I just wanted to leave in front of you, because I would really like to offer our college as a partner to work on the support of teacher development, teacher training, both pre and in service, certification, curriculum development and assessments. Our college has been doing that in partnership with Ahapunaleo for the past 40 years. We also in 1997 were legislatively established as the state's College of Hawaiian Language, housed at University of Hawaii at Hilo, with this specific mandate. And we've been building on that, and even this model that we've built here in Hawaii has afforded us the opportunity to work with other Indigenous communities nationally and internationally. So Ka'ilani mentioned this a little bit earlier. Kahakaula is the principal investigator of the first National Native American Language Resource Center. We're 2.5 years in standing this up in partnership with the University of Alaska and the Lakudare Ojibwe Tribal College in Wisconsin. Our responsibility is to serve 500 Native American language communities who are all grappling with similar issues that we are here in Hawaii. And the number one issue that these communities are letting us know that they want to help in and shared experiences in is teacher certification, preparation, and curriculum resource development. So we are feverishly working to support that. So again, just wanting to mahalo you for this opportunity to share briefly. I want to welcome you to Hilo to come and have more conversation, or we come here a lot as well. But just wanting to share the efforts and lessons learned over the past 3 generations. And these 2 photos capture 3 generations of families that have now been a part of this Hawaiian language movement. We look forward to working closer with you as ELB and EOEL in the early childhood education efforts, particularly in the realm of Hawaiian immersion and Hawaiian medium education, where our expertise lies. We know the demand is growing, which we're very happy to, but we also realize the gravity of that. And I want to affirm, right, that we have the infrastructure, the capacity, and the legal mandate to see that through. So we have a lot vested in successful outcomes for our children and our families, and ultimately our communities as a whole. So mahalo no keia ho'ohe me, and if you have any questions, happy to.
Yeah, I don't have time to entertain any questions. I'm so sorry. But if we have questions, maybe for the next meeting, if you're online, if people have any questions, maybe we can bring that to the next.
I just want to make a comment though, that it would be helpful for the board to know, as well as the public to know, why is it important, aside from the fact that it's law?
Yeah.
Why is it important for Olelo Hawaii to be a part of our daily lives, to be a part of the state, aside from the fact that it is the law?
Yeah.
Why should we be concerned about it as the early learning board? Why is it? Besides the mention in Act 46, Act 210, and besides the fact that it's law. Why is it important for the learners of Hawaii?
One quick answer is the numbers are growing. So the numbers alone demonstrate the growing demand and interest in Hawaiian language return. But I hear your question.
No, I mean, just for the regular learner,
Right.
for the regular learner in Hawaii, for the teachers, for the principals, why is it important? I mean, I could talk about that for about an hour.
Yeah.
But
being able to have kind of an elevator speech about it, yeah, it's a good challenge.
I'll talk to you guys outside.
Yeah. Mahalo, everybody. Meeting summary, we just had the minutes to vote on. We had so much information and questions and discussion that can continue. And I really mahalo everybody for participating and for being here. And we're done. Meeting is adjourned.